So before I begin, I just wanted to clarify that this video is not about the combat changes that came with Tekken 8, which in my opinion are changes for the worse. I'm not a fan of all the power crushes, the overly aggressive gameplay, and how you get punished for playing defensive in any way. I mean, I can still handle those type of players. Sometimes I even give them a taste of their own medicine. But it's just not that fun, is it? I don't want to have to resort to playing like this. The Steam reviews seem to agree with me, and if we're being honest, if the game continues in this direction, I won't be surprised if the opinion becomes negative. But no, this video is not about any of that. This video is about the direction of Tekken in terms of the atmosphere, the character directions, and the overall style and aesthetic of the older games versus the more recent games, and why I personally prefer the older games. To really get my point across, I'm going to provide some brief history of my personal experience with Tekken. My first Tekken game was Tekken Tag Tournament. I played it when I was a child, and it was a game I played to death, and it was a game I loved to death. I remember coming home from school and seeing the cover art for the game. I had the PAL version, so my cover art looked like this. Now, straight away, the cover art left an impression on me. You just have this slick black and white render of Kazuya looking directly into the camera. There's nothing flashy about it, there's nothing extravagant or over the top about it, but it still had a sense of style to it. It might be a weird comparison, but it reminded me of those black and white perfume ads you'll see sometimes on TV. But anyways, I inserted the disc, I booted up the game, and then those iconic piano chords echoed. You first see the urban nightscape, the tall skyscrapers, the building lights illuminating the night sky. It's just an aesthetic I absolutely love. You then see Kazuya all dripped out, getting up from his chair. We then transition into China and we see Lei perform his usual police activities, before we move into Brian just massacring a bunch of soldiers. Then we have Nina getting all dolled up, after which we see Jun in a golden field just taking in the atmosphere. We then see Jin in the same location, albeit it looks a bit destroyed now. He's walking around looking all melancholic, before we go back into Kazuya, walking like a complete badass before channeling into his devil form and letting out an energy blast. And then you see the title screen of the game. The one thing I want to mention here is that nobody in this video is doing anything crazy, over the top or flashy, yet the video still oozes so much style and atmosphere. It just feels classy. You also have the arcade opening, which also maintains this vibe. Again, it's just packed with so much style, so much class, just so much atmosphere. What I love about the old Tekken is that everything felt grounded. Yes, I know the concept of devil isn't really realistic, but back then it just felt like those supernatural elements were grounded in reality. Kazuya didn't go around parading his devil form like he does nowadays. He kind of used it as a last resort. For example, in Tekken 2, you would fight Devil Kazuya in a pitch black room. In the Tekken Tag opening, he goes to the rooftop away from public eye before turning into the devil form. It just felt like back then it was treated as something that we shouldn't be seeing, which in my opinion made it more mysterious and alluring to me. It just made it so much cooler. But moving on from Tekken Tag, the next game I played was Tekken 4. I know there have been plenty of videos by now talking about the direction of Tekken 4, but I thought I would just give my piece too. I know Tekken 4 is seen as the black sheep of the series. Gameplay wise, it's quite unbalanced due to the uneven terrains and the overall slower gameplay, but for me personally, it's still one of my favourite Tekken games, simply based on the aesthetic and atmosphere alone. It just encapsulated that whole cold and metallic / futuristic early 2000s PlayStation 2 vibe, which I personally love. It's an aesthetic I really love. And personally, I was also okay with the slower paced fighting. But Tekken 4 also takes the series in a much darker direction, and man, is this game dark. The story intros have this robotic narrator with zero emotion talking to you, while these weird sound effects chime in every now and again. It's like you're playing some horror game.
Orang felt a strange emptiness within him. He recalled longingly of the days hustling money in street fights, the rush of hand-to-hand combat, and his fight against Jin Kazama. The military could not quell these yearnings.
Then you have the character select theme. If we quickly go back to the character select theme of Tekken Tag Tournament 1.
Jin Kazama.
Now this song is an absolute banger. It really pumps you up and it gets you ready to fight. You feel like you can take on the entire roster with your favourite team. It's the type of music you would expect in a fighting game. I remember then switching over to Tekken 4, getting ready to play the story battle, and then I was hit with this song.
Welcome to the King of Iron Fist Tournament 4.
You just hear these droning guitar strums echoing everywhere, with that same robotic voice announcer welcoming you to the tournament. There's also nothing flashy about this screen. The characters are there, just pick one. Call me weird, but I just love how cold and uninviting this game feels. It doesn't roll out the red carpet for you, or does it treat you like you're anybody special. I also feel like this was the last time Tekken felt grounded. You look at the stages, for example, it's just these really public areas. A shopping mall, an airport, the streets, an underground fight club, a parking lot. Again, it's a point I've been making a lot, but this is nothing flashy or extravagant, but these stages are still filled with so much atmosphere and style. I personally love it because these stages feel like real places you would fight in, and it just added that realness factor to everything. Then you have the music, which is probably the most unique music in a game. It's not traditional fighting game music. Most of it is actually really chill. It kind of almost sounds like lounge music. For some reason it still weirdly works. It still gets me weirdly pumped, and I just love the soundtrack to death. I still listen to it to this day. Speaking of the music, I also feel like there's been a shift in the sound direction of Tekken. My personal opinion, but The older Tekken games have music that feels like it could be played in some underground club. The music is more slightly down-tuned, but at the same time it's still bouncy, gets you pumped. And then you have the newer Tekken games where the music feels like it would be something that would be played in an EDM festival or a rave. This isn't a critique, it's just an observation. I'm not saying one is better than the other because Tekken 8 does have some straight bangers.
Round 4. Fight!
But this new music direction is also a reflection of where Tekken is at right now. The newer music just feels more bombastic, more flashy, very in your face. To be honest, it just comes down to preference, and personally for me, I prefer the slightly down-tuned underground club music. But going back to Tekken 4, this was also the last time the story felt really interesting to me. One thing I really loved was how a lot of the characters had these intertwining stories. Steve, Nina and Lei all had an overarching storyline where you had to see each of their endings to get the overall picture. You then have King and Marduk having an intertwining story. You then have Brian and Yoshimitsu, and then there's obviously the Kazuya Jin Heihachi story. The stories were grounded, intense and genuinely interesting. Every character felt like they mattered. Even Paul had a serious ending.
Paul! Hey, Paul! Paul!
Ain't my style.
Don't get me wrong, Tekken did have its goofy moments back then. One moment that stands out to me is Forest Law's ending in Tekken Tag, where both him and Paul kick each other in the balls. But these moments were sprinkled throughout the game. It wasn't the driving force of the game. Nowadays, it just feels like anyone not named Kazuya or Jin is treated as irrelevant, and some of them are just straight up comic relief at this point.
Bring it on, you aliens!
But going back to the topic of Tekken 4 being grounded, I know the whole Kazuya Jin Devil Gene craziness kicked off from here, but it didn't really go over the top until Tekken 5, which marked a shift in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, in terms of the overall package, I still think Tekken 5 is by far the best and it's my favourite. The gameplay is much improved, it has an insane roster, it includes the arcade versions of Tekken 1, 2 and 3 which blew my mind at the time. It has Ghost Battle, which was a mode I played to death, character customization which I spent hours in, and finally the Devil Within mode, which was fun for what it was. But despite all of that, it does feel like this is where Tekken started to shift in terms of its overall direction. It moved away from that whole urban and grounded aesthetic and started heading towards a more flashy and anime direction. And I'm just personally not a fan. Tekken nowadays just feels like a crappy shonen, if I'm being honest. Kazuya feels like a generic anime villain. Jin feels like a generic shonen hero who needs to just believe in his heart.
You beat me with your heart, not your strength.
Trust in his friends. Power of friendship. It's a story we have seen so many times before and it just feels very trope heavy now. To me, Tekken has lost the uniqueness and mysteriousness it once had, and I just hope in future installments we can start to go back towards a more grounded direction. I just find it ironic how we were all kids or young people when we played the older Tekken games, yet they felt so much more mature than what the Tekken games are now. But yeah, thank you for listening to me yet. If you did enjoy it, I would appreciate a subscribe. I'm very new to all of this, but I do plan on talking about more games in the future. I just love games and I want to talk about them as much as I can. I wanted to talk about Tekken specifically because I was playing Tekken Tag 1 and Tekken 4 a few days ago, and I realised just how much fun I was still having and just how much I still love the overall feel of these games and how much I prefer it over the newer games. But yeah, let me know if you agree with my opinions or if you prefer where Tekken is at right now. Catch you later.